Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Plum Health Direct Primary Care. Plum Health is your personal doctor on speed dial. For $75 a month, you get unlimited access to your doctor. Just call, text, or visit for anything you need. Up to 90% savings on meds, labs, and imaging services, and 90% of all of your healthcare needs handled in-house. You get a personal one-on-one relationship with your doctor with unlimited visits. Spend as much time as you need to get your health on the right track. Serving Detroit and Oakland County individuals and businesses. You can sign up at plumhealthdpc.com. That's plumhealthdpc.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. The storm clouds are outside, but we've got a lot of hot topics to talk about. And to do that, longtime friend of the show, Robin Runyan of Urbanize Detroit. So good to hear from you.
Thanks for having me on again, Jer, and happy late birthday to you. I've always thought that August is the best month for birthdays.
You might not be surprised that my bias is towards your direction. I 100% agree.
For sure.
And I also feel like we could just declare it birthday month.
Absolutely. It's a great month for it. It's warm out. It's nice out. People are pretty relaxed. I'm into it.
We haven't caught up for a minute. Although it's summer, I think there's still some things that we want to get into. But first, I understand that you have something to contribute to where you've been.
Sure. I've been a few places and plans to go more. I will always do a shout out to Eastern Palace Club in Hazel Park. It's a great new place, and I think they've built up a nice, consistent crowd there as well.
Its letters are one letter away, as I said on our chat. It's one letter away from epic.
Yes.
Eastern Palace Club, it just needs an I in there, and it's just epic.
For sure. Another place that's very summery is the Pink Flamingo pop-up on Thursday nights in North Corktown. It's a great place to get some food and something to drink and hang out by a bonfire, listen to music. It's a great little space out there.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've gone, but it's been around for a while, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's been around for a few years. I just went back recently, and it's right next to Hostel Detroit. It's just a really cool spot. There's a lot of cute little houses around. That Spalding Court place is right there, and you can kind of look at that. It's just, the vibes are good there, Jer.
You got Nancy Whiskey around the corner, and there's a whole bunch of, you got Spalding Court, which has been around, forever. And then there are a bunch of little housing things happening and whatever in North Corktown. Really interesting stuff.
It's a super interesting mix of very old houses, the great little neighborhood, newer townhomes and single family homes that you can tell they're very new, and still a lot of land over there that's not being used. It's kind of fascinating to go over there and walk around.
You have stopped by a place that I've been very curious about, and I think there is a degree of, I don't know the proper term, so I'm just going to say it, a degree of woo to it. You've been to Black Salt in Hamtramck, which has been on my list, but I have not made it there yet.
Yeah, to be fair, I have a degree of woo to me as well.
Well, we were joking that you're the chief wooficer of Daily Detroit.
Yeah, so I went there earlier this year, and I think I'm going back in the next few days. They have cocktails there. It's very kind of witchcrafty, which I like. They have special ways that they serve things in a ritual and spells. And, you can just get regular drinks, whatever. You don't have to do the whole thing. They have non-alcoholic drinks as well. But it's a kind of a fun little space to kind of lean into manifesting, what you're looking for and getting rid of the old bad things in your life.
And I am all for that. Let's dive into some of the stories around town. First off, it's gotten a lot of conversation. Those plans about I-375. It's been floated for a while. There wasn't funding. Now there's funding. Now there's more of a clear idea of what the plan is so far. There's some community feedback bits. There was recently an editorial in the Free Press about the number of lanes. Let's reset people where we're at here, because this is a project that seems like it's coming closer and closer together. But as we get closer to those dates, I feel like there's more disagreement on what it should be and what it should look like.
Yeah, it's like there's been so much talk about this, and now it's like, okay, this is the plan, and it's honestly not a great plan. To be completely fair, it's just not. It's such a small, you know, expanse too. It's a mile, um, and they're going to convert this mile-long freeway into more of a boulevard. But like right now, it is 3 lanes each way, and it's also going to be that way when they redo it. So there will be ways they're going to try to slow down traffic and everything. But is that the best use of space? More traffic lanes?
Well, yeah, and some of the neighborhood that I know have been concerned about it actually reducing access for them to certain other parts of town that they need to get to because of its priority for all that traffic getting in and out. Where it's like people seem to be with the idea of getting rid of the freeway because I mean the freeway is very overbuilt for what we need it for now and into the future. And the infrastructure there is crumbling. It's been crumbling for years. I did a piece on it before the pandemic with public television about it. This has been an ongoing concern. Something needs to be done, but what? And then when we bring it up to grade level, we're not talking about like just a boulevard, but we're replacing those 3 lanes of traffic each way with 3 lanes of traffic each way. And like it feels like we've done neither job with these plans.
Yeah, and one of the most infuriating things to me, there's this quote in there about um, needing these traffic lanes right now, when the project's not going to start until 2025, probably. It's not going to be done until they say 2028, but we know that everything takes longer than they say. Um, it feels like this is such a missed opportunity to explore more ways of getting people around. It just doesn't have to be solely car culture that we need to be concerned about. Do you want to cross this traffic? Like, do you want to cross these 3 lanes? And like, it, and it's such a mindset here to just do this for the cars and do this for traffic concerns without really thinking about other ways to get to where we're going.
Of course, there's the age-old conversation about transit that we can have over and over again. I think is still important, but you look at it, and those bridges are rough to cross right now. It feels like there's a barrier between downtown and Lafayette Park when it could be a really contiguous kind of area. But then making this surface level also doesn't really encourage these kinds of connections. And I feel like there could be other solutions for, say, traffic on game days to say, all right, maybe after a Lions game for an hour or two, the traffic flexes and it's 3 lanes out and 1 lane in. Or, I feel like there's so many other ways we could have approached this. And I know that there was a lot of voices with the downtown Detroit corporate community about making sure that there's ins and outs. But I'm just going to be real honest with you. Like, I mean, there is some traffic returning, but it's nowhere near what it was. And some of that traffic that's returning is not necessarily about game days or offices, but residents. It gets me to this idea that are we making a city for people or are we making it for cars? And obviously, cars are the center of so many things that we do. And I know I'm going to get somebody in the comments telling me that I want to take everyone's car away, which is usually what happens whenever I mention this. But I do not. It's more about, when you live in a city, you want that city to be for the people that live there too. And that's part of what makes it attractive and builds momentum. And if you make a city only for visitors, and if you design it where it feels only for visitors, then you're not going to get as many people living there.
Yeah, and I feel like the traffic that they're concerned about, it's not going to the Run Sun right now. It's not really going to it's going to the
And I was completely disoriented because so much stuff was closed.
Yeah, it's I haven't been in there for a while. I think a lot of people haven't been in there for a while, to be honest, for various reasons. But I drove that little stretch, during what would be when people are getting out of work recently, and there just wasn't that much happening down there. So, like, yeah, we should be concerned about Lions games and big concerts, and the casino gets a lot of traffic, and we can figure all that out. But it seems like we're coming face to face with the actual plans and the actual timeline now, and it still seems like missed opportunities.
Well, and then you've also got the equity discussion, because I don't think that anyone can really say that any of these plans help restore any of the things that was there. That's a ship that has sailed, unfortunately, and I think there should be somehow we can right some of these issues. But in federal planning documents, it clearly states that federal dollars can't be used for any sorts of reparation. Like, that's literally in there, that federal dollars for these kinds of things can't be used for reparations. So I think that there's a lot to this, and I think overall there's like a good idea here, but I think the implementation, it's based in a Detroit that was 10 years ago, and that's kind of my fear with that, whether it's that or the 94 expansion. I remember the original draft documents for the 94 expansion talking about like just completely missing what that area of town is now. It's just, and I know all these things take a long time.
Yeah, and this plan does open up a lot of acreage for development, which was a big part of it. So, one would hope that as they are, planning out the development here, that there is some equity to it. It's a dream. Money talks. So, we'll see. Hopefully there is some way that people can remember what was there.
Now, if you were to take that future boulevard, depending on how they put it together, and go all the way to the riverfront, you would hit the Riverwalk. It's an area that I think is near and dear to listeners' hearts, my heart, and I know from pictures on social media, your heart, you like to visit it a lot, the Riverwalk. And you have some details and things to talk about what's happening there and the final realization of some of the connections that have been wanted for so many years.
Yeah, so as it stands right now, you could go from just kind of near the old Joe Louis site all the way to Mount Elliott Park on the east side. You could get there by foot or bike. But then if you want to go to Belle Isle, you kind of have to go up to Jefferson and go around, which is not that safe and not that convenient for people either. So they've been working on this last little part, the former Uniroyal site, for a couple of years now, and it's almost done. There was a lot of cleanup involved. I think a little bit more went into this than was originally planned, but what it's going to do is really tie all of that together. You'll be able to get to Belle Isle now just on foot or bike from downtown, which is going to be amazing for people.
Going over the bridge, I actually noticed in the distance that was starting to come together, and it's looking really, really nice. And I feel like it opens up a whole doorway from downtown connecting to the bridge. And then, you're near Island View then. Like, in a perfect world, I like to see that continue. I mean, obviously you can't all with the riverfront, but in different ways, connecting all these neighborhoods, whether it's paths, whether it's transit, whether it's all of the above, to kind of make more of a cohesive feel for all these areas and a real experience, because, the Riverwalk wins all these awards for a reason,
They do a remarkable job. It's a great place to visit. You see so many families down there, so many kinds of people down there. It's such a great place, and this is just going to help so many people just kind of continue that pathway of discovering different parts of the city. I think it's really interesting because the section of land in front of it still hasn't been developed yet, which that does not belong to the Riverfront Conservancy. So it'll be interesting to see if anything happens with that yet, because I feel like that site right next to, on the road from Jefferson to Belle Isle, we've seen that site for a long time. We've heard some plans in the past, but we haven't seen anything there.
I mean, I remember when like Jerome Bettis, the bus, was going to do something over there. And then there was that big boy that got tore down. And that's kind of like not, I think that's being marketed as a site. I mean, there used to be a tire plant there. I remember when there was a kid, there was a plant there. Like, it's been a really long time. Like, it's been decades that this has been stuck.
Yeah. And it seems like maybe 2017, 2018, there were more plans floated around for Island View for both of those spots across Jefferson. And next to Belle Isle, and it's still the same.
I'd be interested to hear what people think. 313-789-3211 or shoot us an email, dailydetroit@gmail.com. I think we would be remiss if we didn't take the time to cross the bridge there and talk about some plans and recommendations that are underway to make some improvements to the state park. A lot of it is focused on mobility and pedestrians and making it more friendly. There's a number of things that are open for public feedback. I think there's a little bit of time if you're listening to it on Thursday or Friday to be able to raise your hand and do some stuff online. But what's kind of the thrust of all of this?
Okay, so Belle Isle is a great place to visit. Anybody who's been there has to enjoy the experience, but there are ways to make it better in kind of traffic itself and just making it safer for people to get around. So they've been doing this study for a little while, and they have these recommendations, and they're going to come up with an actual plan by the end of the year. But I think some of these recommendations are interesting. I know we disagree on some of them. But we want it to be a safer experience for people. We want people to enjoy themselves and not think about the things that could be better.
Yeah, there are some visual things I've seen even before we get into these recommendations. There's a lot more parking spots on the island. There's a lot more striped, angled parking spots, whether it's down Central or it's over by the beaches or over by the picnic areas. What they've done is they've taken out a couple of lanes of traffic and they've made just so much more room for cars so that people don't necessarily drive up on the grass like they sometimes do, and also kind of reduce those number of lanes. And I can tell from the paint that it's kind of temporary. I know there's a lot of resurfacing going on. I know that there's been a lot of paths put in. I know there's been some streets that have been narrowed. But I'm going to go through this kind of list of bullet points that they have, including the first one, which is taking that main road around the island to two ways and adding traffic circles for easier and safer access. These are their words. To take that big road around for two-way access. How do you feel about that?
Hate it. I hate it.
See, I think it's great, but go ahead and take your side.
I feel like it's going to be so hard for people to get used to that. I just think the potential for accidents in the first year or two it feels like that could be an issue.
See, for me, it's about slowing traffic. I don't know if that's the answer to do it, but it can be a little bit annoying to have to go all the way around the island for something. And I think having to go that extra distance sometimes encourages people to speed. Because to me, like the one thing you don't need to be doing on Belle Isle, whether you're listening to music, whether you're having fun with your friends, or whether you're just enjoying the nature, like the one thing you shouldn't be doing on Belle Isle is speeding.
Right.
But I do understand the change is hard, and it's been one way as long as I can remember. So I do understand that. How do you feel about traffic circles in general? We've had this conversation on the show, but not with you.
I feel like they're just something that you figure out.
Okay.
I don't have super strong opinions on them.
Because Norris and Fletcher want to burn them all down.
I mean, you don't need to do that. It's fine if traffic people say that it works, then maybe it'll work. When you were talking about the two-way traffic, though, like I just got this image in my head of people trying to pass people and traffic coming from other lanes. It's just it worries me just knowing how people drive.
Then they talk about creating what they call a welcoming bridge and entry experience, including installing protected bike lanes on the bridge and improving access at the toll booths. You can already see one of the lanes is actually blocked off, kind of to help train people into that. I think that's a good idea considering the connections to the Riverwalk to make that a better experience, because it's a little harrowing to go down either one of those sides when you're right against the water when you're biking. So I understand wanting to do some of that. Anything that's welcoming is good. Like my grandmother used to be a member of the Belle Isle Botanical Society and made me, haul around a radio flyer wagon full of pots and plants. And so she used to help plant flowers back in the day on that clock up there. So I'm all for a welcoming experience. But thoughts? I mean, that's a big bridge to have to cover on foot or bike or anything else.
Yeah, and I've definitely done that before. I can't believe they don't have protected bike lanes yet. And the walking path, the last time I was on it was not in good shape. The concrete was broken up. So I'm all for all of this. And they've added new bike paths on the island itself. So this just creates such a great with all the connections that they're building. And the connection to the Joe Louis Greenway too. I mean, it's going to be a great way for people to get around the city and the park on bike.
Next up is putting together a promenade down the center of Central Avenue for all pedestrians, including walkers and bikers. There have been some recent changes, some unprotected, just striped lanes, some extra parking put on Central recently. I posted up on social media. I'm a firm believer that protected bike lanes and protected infrastructure matters, because I think drivers don't pay attention. I think it's easy to like hit a rock as a biker and be in the wrong spot. Like, I feel like it's the way to go. I also think that it's a huge missed opportunity on Central Avenue for something walkable and beautiful.
Yeah, I love this idea. I just, there's a lot of pathways, within the island, but I think making something special for people and really prioritizing that safety so people feel good about it, and, taking their kids out for walks and everything. I love this idea.
Adding parking where it's needed and improving signage around the island help visitors know where to go and how to get there. Signage, I will fully say, needs a huge overhaul. Like,
Yeah.
it's time. It's been time for a very long time. Unless you're a park veteran, you can get lost and spun around on that thing pretty easily. I also understand that the main mode of transportation in Metro Detroit, and for most families and communities, is, they drive the car to the picnic, and we have to understand that's a mode, and that's important.
Yeah, and it's a big island. I mean, it's just a big island.
It's big. It's the size of Central Park.
Right. So, people are most likely going to drive there, and they do need good parking options. But that also kind of leads into the last recommendation that I think is interesting to talk about, because I think people have a lot of thoughts on this one.
Yeah. They want to have more mobility options, such as a ferry or improved public transportation to and from the park.
Yeah, I think a ferry would, especially for families who don't go there very often, I think it would make it more special. Who doesn't love a little ferry? It's kind of fun. But once you get there, you also need a way to get around. So, improving kind of transit around the park, I think is going to be important, because, as we said, it's a big place.
A shuttle, maybe even open shuttle. When I've been on studio tours or zoo tours or whatever, maybe one of those shuttles that has just the little flaps that come down if it rains a little bit. I don't know, something that's more accessible, that you can easily get around the park and get to attractions without having to take the car, and think about it in a more holistic manner. I don't know exactly what the best answer for that is. A lot of times the island is shut down, on the weekends and stuff, because there's a maximum amount of cars that the island can handle, and it's because cars take up more space, parking spaces, all that. But, people wondered why during the Grand Prix you could fit so many people on the island. Well, that's because you didn't drive on the island. You had one parking lot for VIPs, and beyond that, everybody bussed on the island. That's why you could fit 10 times the number of people on the island, is you didn't have the cars.
Yeah, and we don't need to be building the queue line on the island. That's not what we're talking about. It doesn't
put a
need
queue
to be
line on it. It's like a bumper stick. Just put a queue line on it. Your cake, put a queue line on it. Your coney dog, put a queue line on it. Whatever it is, put a queue line on it.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a whole big thing. It just needs to be a reliable way for people to get around.
I feel like if we overthink it, if we make it, too difficult to use, if we overdo it, it's not going to be as fun.
While we're at it, why don't we take these pedal pubs that people hate downtown, repurpose them into something useful to get around Belle Isle?
Now that's a whole different kind of woo.
Yes.
It's there's woo and then there's woo. And so I feel like we could have the Belle Isle Wild Wooer.
Yeah, this is definitely the woo episode, Jared.
With that, Robin Runyan, thank you so much for making some time in your summer for us. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Do you have thoughts, feedback? dailydetroit@gmail.com, 313-789-3211. Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Tomorrow, Devin O'Reilly joins me to do All Things Friday. With that, I'm Chair Stays. Don't forget to share the show. Thanks so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.